Oh, I want to spend just another moment on the debt, because I agree with you, David, that it's certainly a medium and long run problem. But in a lot of respects, I think one of the underappreciated stories is how much we've done to deal with it. You never did Bowles-Simpson all at once, but you did the Affordable Care Act, which is over $1 trillion of deficit reduction. You did the Budget Control Act. You did the tax deal that raised rates on high-income households. You add all of those up, you add up the more favorable trend in health spending that we should come back and talk more about, because I think it's one of the underappreciated factors in the economy. And the Congressional Budget Office says, let's not look at where the debt and deficit is right now. Let's try to look at where it is in present value over a longer period of time. They have a measure called the fiscal gap, just how much you need to raise taxes or cut spending as a share of GDP today to stabilize the debt. The fiscal gap 5 years ago, before the recession, was between 5 and 10% of GDP. Their latest estimate of the fiscal gap is less than 2% of GDP. And a lot of that's because of that deficit reduction, and a lot of that's because of that favorable health trend. This fiscal gap depends enormously on interest rates, and all the forecasts we use, all the numbers we look at, assume a very large rise in interest rates, just like David was talking about. We build that in to the assumptions. If anything, I'll bet if you looked at our long-run interest rates, you would think we were being too conservative and had rates that were too high.
You know, when I worked in the White House, we managed to get inflation to 19%. If you could do that, you would be able to reduce this debt more quickly. And if I were to come back in government, I promise you I could get inflation up again, and that would reduce the real burden. Interestingly, we have squeezed the federal government in recent years. People may not believe this, but if you look at the statistics, under Ronald Reagan's term and under George W. Bush's term, the federal rate of spending went up about 8% a year. The federal government spending went up about 8% a year. Under President Barack Obama, the federal rate of spending is going up about 1.5% a year. So it hasn't been going up all that much. Eventually, I think we're going to have to increase federal spending, because it's been, I think, kept artificially low because Congress doesn't really want to pass a lot of legislation or do a lot of things. If the rate does go up to a more normalized rate of 3 or 4% or 5% of federal spending growth a year, we're going to have deficit problems we're going to have to deal with. So yes, a lot of what you say is accurate. I just worry that if the inflation rate goes, if the interest rates go up, and if federal spending goes up to more normalized rates, we could get back to $1 trillion deficits again. Hopefully that won't happen.